Welcome to Throw Off the Lines, the podcast where we navigate life's changes, explore new horizons, and embrace the journey. I'm your host, Stephanie York, an executive coach with a passion for charting new courses on the water and in life. Ready for some total change? Let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Throw Off the Lines. Total is the short name. My name is Stephanie York, and I am the host of Total Podcast, and I wanted to jump in today because it's a topic that has lately been near and dear to my heart, and I've been doing a lot of thought about whether that's because I'm 57 and I'm in a different stage in my life, and if it is wisdom coming with age, or if I'm just tired because I'm 57. I don't know. But today's topic is going to be doing nothing. And I just wanted to touch base because I was noticing over the last 10 months, if not a year, almost a year, coming up on a year probably in September, I have been in a new phase of my life and finding myself again after the breakup of my marriage. And I find that a lot of what I do was always pushing forward. I was always pushing against something. I was unhappy. I was searching. I felt incomplete. And once I threw off the lines, that would be the marriage itself, I felt so free. I felt it was all an internal process. It had nothing to do with my husband and had nothing to do with the things that were going on in our relationship, but it had a lot to do with the things that were going on inside of me and had been going on inside of me for probably close to a decade, and the culmination of things I've read about and been a part of in my life. So when I thought about this topic, I really thought about how busy I have been and how busy everybody I know is. And I'll call up a friend of mine and she's breathless and just almost distraught. And every time I talk to her, she's like that. And she always says, I'm so sorry I couldn't get a hold of you. I've just been so busy. And I'm doing this for this person and this for that person. And it's constantly that she is not got time for herself. And it's not just her. It's a lot of my friends and a lot of people I call. And I know that after the pandemic, everybody was so isolated. People got really good at being alone. I know for sure I got better at being alone, but I never lost the drive. I'd never lost the push to get something done. I was always striving for something, always feeling like things were incomplete. And I think over the last year, as I've settled into myself and being happy with myself and being happy with my life, and I do think meditating has helped a lot, and exercising and pursuing things like this podcast that I've had people ask me to do, I have been able to find peace. And I didn't have peace for a long time. I always felt less than. I felt unworthy unless I was striving and trying to do more. And people always ask, how many clients do you have? And it doesn't ever seem to be the right number for them, but it doesn't matter. It's the number of clients that I have. And I'm not unhappy with the number I have. I'll help as many as I can. I'll limit the number I can have, but I don't have too many and I have just enough. It's what I have. So touching base with the just having enough and doing nothing is a huge topic because so many of us strive to push and push and push. And I know I've covered that topic. I think I also really embraced it when I most recently in April, flew to New Zealand, and I was joining my friend on her boat to help her sail it to Fiji. I'm lucky enough to know captains on boats, and I have enough skills. I'm not great at it, but I have enough skills to be of service to them, helping them get a boat from point A to point B. I'm not the best sailor. I'm definitely not the best person that knows all the systems, but incomprehensibly brave or fearless, and I will go out in most conditions, and I love to help people, and my joy and passion is being on the water. So I went to see her and thought I could help her. We had to get the mast put back in the boat, and she had tons of workmen working on it in the marina, and she had everything in order. And when I got there, I settled into my little bunk, and I found I didn't have anything to do. And I still had my clients and I had my podcast equipment, but I hadn't done a lot of the work to figure out what exactly this podcast would be about. And I wanted to interview people, and she didn't want to be interviewed. She said, no way, she doesn't want to ever talk about her business stuff. And I talked to some other people and they were too busy. So I kind of let the podcast thing melt to the background, and I found myself with a lot of time on my hands. And I had to really make peace with it, kind of having a conversation where if you're listening to this and you're wondering how to do nothing, I had to make a decision that I was going to do nothing. I wanted to help her out. I couldn't help her out. She had to put the whole boat back together in the order she wanted it. So I could only go for walks or try to go for hikes or go and explore the local area and meet people. And she was more than kind in having me on the boat, but I had a lot of time on my hands. I did still talk to clients. Thankfully, Starlink allowed me to access the internet, and she had that on board. But my time opened up in front of me, and I slept in because I let go of the drive. I slept incredible hours on the boat, and then I was able to go online and research podcasts, and I was able to explore New Zealand. And we spent a month and a half before we left on the boat, and I just became very peaceful. I was meditating 20 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night. I was writing a lot. I was reading books. I was listening to podcasts. I was really thoroughly enjoying investigating things that I had always wanted to do. And I didn't know how to go about it. I think a lot of people say, I don't want to retire because I think I'll die. And then when they retire, they say, I don't know how I ever did anything because they are so busy in retirement. So I think part of just not doing anything is understanding the nature of it. Back when, society wasn't as busy as it is now, and we have to work really hard to pay our bills in the world that we've created. People, I think, used to sit on the porch and drink lemonade and just swing, and they'd talk to their neighbors. And we don't do that anymore. And there's a lot of joy to be said about sitting next to a river and watching the water go by. I'll tell you the hours I have spent on a watch, on a boat by myself during the day or at night while the other crew is sleeping. If you don't know how to be alone and do nothing, you have to be aware of what's going on the boat. But if you are not comfortable doing nothing but thinking and spending time with yourself, that's a hard couple of hours to do. So I realized that I had the skills to be on my own and to be happy with it. And I did a little bit of research, and I think we've heard over time, over the last 5-10 years, about stuff like the Dutch calling it Nixon, which is basically the art of doing nothing. And there's a whole book on the art of doing nothing. The Chinese called it lying flat, where the whole labeled the millennial generation was just deciding to do nothing. And it was really upsetting the government. They didn't know what to do with this whole group of people that decided they didn't want to participate anymore. And I think that in our society, we're seeing a lot more of people deciding that, you know what, I'm not going to participate in a corporate job. I'm not going to participate in getting married and having a family and buying a house. I don't see the reward in it. I don't feel that I'll ever be able to achieve it. And I'm just not going to participate in society in that way. Instead, I'm going to decide to do nothing. I'm going to go and take the $5,000 that I made in a job and quit my job and go and travel in a van. And I think this is a shift that, people who are driven in corporate America don't understand very well. But I will tell you that it has been the most rewarding thing in the last year, as I've really been able to start to like myself again and start to find peace and purpose. And that drive, finding my purpose, has been overwhelmingly peaceful. I find that I'm really happy doing nothing. So I think it stems from my fighting this not doing anything, stems from when I used to do everything as a single mom, raising my daughter, and I had to make corporation happy. I had to make the daycare happy. I had to make my daughter happy. I was dating. I had to make that person happy. And I was never really taking care of myself. And I was always a people pleaser and empathetic to other people. I've always given everybody everything that I have. I give them my cars and I give them my stuff. And I think that when you're that person, it's really hard to ever think about just taking time for yourself. And I feel like I'm not doing enough for people when I'm in that role. And in this last year, I've kind of let go of that. I don't have a husband. My daughter's 30. She doesn't need me. In fact, frequently probably doesn't want me around because she has her own life. And that's what we want. We want to raise our children to have their own lives. So we don't want to be needed by them. I remember when I was in Mexico, there was a couple that had just bought a boat and they had sailed down to Mexico, but their daughter had just had a baby. And the mother, was saying, oh, we've got to get back. We've got to get back. And we're selling our boat. And they had just sailed to Mexico. They were a lovely couple. And she said, my daughter needs me. And they sold their boat and they went back to, I think it was Oregon. And when they got back there, we didn't see them for a year and a half. But then they came down, driving down to visit with a bunch of us that they knew. And they said that they were looking to buy a boat and do the trip again. And she said, when I got there, she didn't need me. She wanted me to visit, but she wanted to live her own life. She wanted to lead her own life, and she didn't need her mom to come in and help her raise her child. And I think that that's the case for most of us. My daughter certainly doesn't need me. She wants me around, but I have to live my own life. At 57, hopefully, by the grace of God, I've got more time ahead, but I've got to learn to be happy with myself. And I'm not needed by everybody. I'm not needed by hardly anybody. So how do I take care of that time that's opened up in front of me? And I'm finding that the shift, has really been about countering boredom. So I know a lot of people on a lot of forums with women, and I would listen to a lot of podcasts and people who are trying to overcome addictive behaviors, or people who are, and as I coach a lot of A personality people, I love them. They often can't have downtime. They don't handle downtime well. They can't handle being bored. They get into trouble, is what they say. And I think that some of us think of trouble as, hey, I'm going to go gamble, or I'm going to do a behavior I don't like. I'm going to eat, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to, do drugs. And I'm not going to be happy about those behaviors because that's how I see filling my time is, because I'm going to be bored. And I think we use that word, that it can be a trap when we say, oh, I've got Saturday all day. I have no plans. Quick, I've got to make plans with somebody. I've got to go to a movie. I've got to go somewhere and I got to have a party. I've got to get a date. And I don't want to be bored all day Saturday because then I won't have lived a meaningful life. I guess I'm kind of stretching that explanation out to that. But I do know for myself, if I was going through a weekend before and I didn't do something Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday afternoon, and I would feel like I hadn't done anything, like my life didn't have meaning, that it was empty. It was maybe FOMO, fear of missing out. If I'm not having fun and everybody else is, then I'm not a part of the group. And because we're so tribal and we want to belong so much, not being a part of the group is scary, and not having a great time. And you watch social media and this person went to that great place. And I think that getting off that roller coaster of, I have to be doing something all the time. What am I doing? Oh, I've got downtime. Oh, no, let's fill it up. Let's go places. Let's get busy. I think getting off of that is so healthy and rewarding. I'm happier than I have been in decades. And I'm taking time and finding out more about myself all the time. So things that I do, if you want to know how to fill up your time, if you're feeling like, you know what, I would be bored if I didn't do anything, this is probably not for you if you're an A personality person. This is just for me at 57, changing hormones, changing life circumstances. I travel a lot. I find myself in situations frequently that are beyond my control. I don't have the house with the TV and the Disney Channel, Peacock, all that. I don't have a lot of things to fill up my time. So I have to find ways to fill my time. So I have podcasts I listen to. I have books on my Kindle that I could read. But frequently, I'll just sit still and relax and stare at the ceiling. And it took me a while to get really good at that. And I can just feel so happy just being still. And it sounds kind of weird, but I challenge anybody who wants to find peace in doing nothing to meditate. Absolutely. I 100% swear by the Balance app. I've been getting all my clients on it. It's one of the best apps to teach you how to meditate. They teach you how to meditate in stillness, or they can give you lots of different meditation tools. But by training your brain to be relaxed in quiet moments and being very, very present at all times, you are, trust me, never bored. So when you have downtime facing you, meditating, just sitting, or going for a walk. I often will walk with a podcast in my ears, and I will walk with music in my ears. And lately, I've been not having anything with me. I don't want to listen to something. I want to be present. I want to see the other dogs that are walking when I'm walking my grandpuppies. I want to see the trees. I want to see the people. I want to interact. Today, I went for a walk with the dogs, and I got to say hi to 3 people on the street. I talked to one guy about how he's walking his dog every day because he had a stroke and he's trying to overcome the stroke. And I got to look into a construction site. And I got to see how the neighborhood is changing. I got to see where are we at in the season. I got to hear music going on. And I heard all the kids at the school running and jumping and yelling and being alive. And I don't know. I just don't feel like I can be bored when I'm walking and listening. And it took me a while. I was listening to podcasts and music up until just about 6 months ago. Anytime I went for a walk, I had to have something distracting me. And now I'm able to just walk and listen and be present in the moment. And I think that that's probably one of the things that people find hard, is to just be with themselves. So if you are struggling to just be present, I strongly recommend meditation and journaling. And then another thing you could do is focus on a topic that you want to think about. It could be a balloon festival. Do you ever want to go to one? It could be, what beach island would you like to go to? It could be reminiscing a favorite thing that happened in your past, a good time that happened. It could be daydreaming about meeting someone. What would that person be like? I do talk to a lot of people who haven't found a significant other, and we talk about, what kind of person do you want to have in your life? And I'm going to be doing a podcast on becoming the kind of person that you would want to date. So I talk to people about that. Think about that. What are some things I want to work on about myself? Do I want to work on my diet? What did I struggle with yesterday? Did something come across my plate that was hard for me to deal with? Process that while you're walking. Or, I love to just spend time by myself. I know a lot of us watch way too much TV. I don't happily watch too much TV. It's really impossible to do when you're on a boat. So when I have some downtime, I'll watch a silly old sitcom that I love, that is mindless, that I've watched before, and it'll just allow me to relax. Now, I'm not doing that for 5 or 6 hours a day. I have to give myself permission to just be kind of still. We don't need to rush around. So I would probably try to really think about what it is you want in your life for stillness. What do you want for peace? If you're looking for peace in your life, and I know if you've got 5 kids at home and your husband's coming home and you got to make dinner and you got to do laundry and you've worked a full day and you're trying to exercise, a lot of this is really hard. So if you get 5 minutes to shut yourself in a closet and just meditate, to go to that quiet, calm place, that is doing nothing. Being present in the moment is doing nothing. And I always like to go back to a Buddhist monk that he wrote a lot of books. He wrote a book about the art of doing nothing, Thich Nhat Hanh. And he had a quote that said, people should learn how to just be there doing nothing. Try to spend a day doing nothing. We call that a lazy day. And aimlessness does not mean doing nothing. It means not putting something in front of you to chase after. So I really want to make it clear that it's not just you standing in the middle of a room like a crazy person, not moving, not doing anything, but it's aimless. Think about a day on the beach, which I struggled with for years. Think about taking a chair, taking a book, putting it down by a river, having a big bucket of iced tea or lemonade or whatever it is, and maybe a sandwich, and just go down there and read your book and watch the water go by and aimlessly do nothing. Yeah, reading a book is active, but you're not pursuing or chasing anything. You're not putting something in front of you that you've got to get to. You're just being. And I think if we can return back to that and find peace and joy in our day, it's a good idea to just stop. And they say smell the roses, but maybe just stop and be still and find a moment of peace. And I know meditating, again, is really, really good. People do it first thing in the morning. If you can find the time in your day to just slow down and take a breather and take a moment, and then the next time you have time off, don't book it full of things. And don't book it for anybody else. Book it for yourself. I've been talking to my clients lately about doing something for themselves. And even my A-type people, I said, just plan something where you go to a favorite place and you just put down a towel and you just sit there for 5-10 minutes and you take that moment to just be with yourself, present, and find some happiness, because I think it's so important these days. So sit, meditate, read a book, drink a cup of coffee. I love coffee. So sit. Another really good thing to do, which I was loving doing in New Zealand and Australia, and even in Fiji, is buy a cup of coffee on the side of the road and sit there and just watch people walk by. I also love going to the mall and just walking through and looking at all the different people. I love people, and there's so many different people in this world. The character that shows on people's faces, that's doing nothing. Going and observing people is doing nothing. So I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. I know so much of what I talk about, especially with my coaching company is called DES for Don't Ever Stop. And that means don't ever stop learning and growing. And I think learning how to stop and to be still and find peace is learning and growing. It has been for me. And I got to tell you, it's one of the best years of my life in a long, long time. So I hope that you can learn to be more peaceful, and I hope you don't ever stop learning and growing. And take care. Thank you for joining me on Throw Off the Lines. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for future episodes and extras, and leave a review, share it with someone who needs a total inspiration. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram and our Throw Off the Lines website. If you want to be a guest or have questions for the host, sign up on the website and we'll get back to you. Until next time, throw off those lines and live your best life.